Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and today I have kind of a what would we call this? A overview of paper money to talk about a little bit on the educational side, just talking about what in the world is this stuff that people collect, and why is there so much of it, and why do they all look different? Here's a $2 bill, and 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 it's like, well. Look, different years, silver, legal silver. What are we talking about here? And it becomes really confusing. It's kind of like when you get into a new sport or something you're not experienced with, and you kind of have to learn some of the language. So the main thing to remember here is that the United States government took different types of debt devices or cash devices to make up their currency system. And that is something that really varied from time to time, from the beginning of time in America, that is. So, for example, most any of your early colonial currency is going to be just a debt instrument. Sometimes they will say that they had money set aside, but other times it's just receivable, right? This is a note from 1863 called a legal tender note. Legal tender notes are debt instruments. So payable at the Treasury of the U.S. at New York. There's Honest Abe on there. And, these notes are where we get the term greenback from originally because of the greenback. But if you look at them, a lot of times they actually had the legalese on the back. And so when you're going through these, the different types of notes you have, you can always take the time to read the legalese on the back about public debts, private and legal tender, and all this stuff. So a legal tender note is just a debt instrument. And those series, they started in the Civil War in the 1860s and continued on through the 1960s, so 100 years. Silver certificates, like this one, actually had, this certifies that there have been deposited in the Treasury of the United States 2 silver dollars. Right? And so they actually had the silver dollars put away. This is what they were certifying. Hey, this note represents some value of something that was already in place and established. So that is very different from a legal tender note. And then, of course, you had gold certificates, which is similar here that you've got, as we went on in time, they did change the laws a little bit. This certifies that there have been deposited in the Treasury of the United States of America $10 in gold coin. One of the reasons why it's so confusing is, of course, you got to learn that you read up here, and then down here. That all reads. This is all separate, right? So they had gold coin set aside, silver coin set aside, and there were even some other notes we get later in life. Of course, we get this little thing called the Federal Reserve that came along, and that was a little bit different than what we had before. There are also Federal Reserve banknotes, national banknotes. I don't have any of those right here in front of me. And there are also Treasury notes, which you don't see as often. Treasury note of the United States of America will pay to bear $1 in coin, which is kind of cool because these also say that they will pay in coin. And it has a similar, this note is legal tender jargon that's on some of the other notes from the time period. This one's from 1891. And if you've ever seen the Civil War movie about Abraham Lincoln, the guy who played Stanton looked just like him on there, right? So one of the reasons there's so many different notes is because they were passed under different laws. And so also it gets confusing when you look at them all, because here's your Federal Reserve note, Treasury note, gold certificate, silver certificate, legal tender note, right? And then there's different years, right? And then there's different denominations. So if you think of, each of these different legal types here, the gold, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, you can think of them as like football teams. and then something along those lines. If you think of the time period simply as a time period, there's that, and then maybe the different denominations of different players. There's lots of ways to kind of visualize it in your mind, but you got ones, fives, tens, twos. So when you're new to this stuff, it's all very overwhelming. And also, if you're trying to learn this stuff on TikTok or someplace else where they're just flashing around real fast, like I am here, it can be also very difficult to understand. But what's cool is you can collect them however you want to. So for example, I know guys that just collect $2 bills. So they'll buy different series that way, right? So that's one way that you can look at it. I know other guys that, they'll just be collecting a certain series. So for example, this is called the educational series. It's a very popular series of note, and they made those in ones, fives, and tens. And I don't have the 5, unfortunately, but the $1 bill and the $2 bill are both stunning notes, considered just absolute works of art. So I have people that collect notes that way. And if you want to collect certain banknotes, there are also notes that are just so popular that people want them all the time, such as the Chief or the Bison. Also, lots of guys, they don't care about that this is a legal tender, but this is a silver certificate, because all they know is like, there's the Chief, there's the Bison. Here you go. That's this one's called the Poker Chip. They had nicknames for all of them. Also, guys who don't collect banknotes might buy this Grant note from 1886. Why? Because it has 5 silver dollars printed on the back, which is a very, very cool feature, right? There's not a whole lot of that going on. So it's a real popular thing. Or they may collect just a note because it's got Martha Washington on it, which, is in my stack somewhere. Or maybe it's already underneath the other stack, and I'm just getting so overwhelmed myself with all these notes that I can't find exactly what it is that I'm looking for. And I still haven't found what I'm looking for. You too? Yeah. So also, what's fun is that if you get into this, you start to see the progression over time of certain banknotes, right? So usually this is a real common banknote known as a wood chopper from 1907. Okay. And one of the things that you'll find out as you go through is you'll see them, and then all of a sudden you'll see another one and you say, this is a little bit different. But the design is basically the same, except the seal is a little different with this big, beautiful seal on it. And then this is series 1878 instead of series of 1907. So one of the things to help you distinguish it, when I remember I was talking about time periods, is, so these guys, same team, different time period, right? Same denomination. And you can go back one more in time, 1869. This series is known as the Rainbow Series. So same design, different seal, but has a very colorful palette to it compared to the other ones, right? The other ones are just more of a white issue. And this seems to be like a trend for U.S. currency, by the way, that it just kept getting more and more debased till eventually I thought it was going to be nothing but a piece of paper with a dollar sign on it. I really thought that's what was going to happen. So you can collect them just by a series like this and try and put them together, or if you want to, you can also go through and collect by a certain type. For example, just those educational notes, or these rainbow notes, right? You can go ahead and try to collect all the rainbow notes from 1869 if you want to. And so there's lots of different ways to collect them. Now, a couple more things that I do want to point out is, generally speaking, if you're trying to figure out what notes you have, they pretty much always tell you on them. Now, it's easier when you get a certified note, because the certified note's going to have all the information up here, including this FR number. I'll get to that in a second. But they'll tell you the denomination and the date and the series. Silver certificate is the series. And this FR number is a reference back to the Friedberg book on paper money. So if you want to find a banknote, Friedberg 261, they are in chronological order. I just have to flip through this book until I get to number 261. And lickety split, lo and behold, we'll find the banknotes we're looking for, right? So useful to have the Friedberg book if you're going to start collecting paper money. But if you don't have notes that have all this information on them, just remember there's a few different teams you're looking for, right? So it'll actually say on it usually that it is a silver certificate, but sometimes kind of small, or it'll actually say on it, that it is a Federal Reserve note. So it tells you on it what it is, right? And so it's just a matter of you taking the time to kind of read some of the things on it, because it'll say that it's a Treasury note. By the way, this is where it gets also a little bit convoluted. Legal tender notes and Treasury notes are one and the same here. So it says Treasury up here, but here it says legal tender for $5. So, they do use a little bit different language from series to series, but really, as always, education is the key. Getting books like the Friedberg book is really one of the best ways to go ahead and learn more about it. So anyways, this is kind of a shotgun approach here, but I just want to show you some of the different main types of currency that are out there, and hopefully that helps you to understand, what's available in the market. And keep watching. We'll have some more videos coming up just about very specific series that are just oriented towards one type. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen.